So in this video I'm going to show you guys how I would lower and stance a model car. So this stock ride height is not ideal. We want it a bit lower than it is, and we also don't like the stock camber at the 90 degrees, so we also want to give it a bit more stance. So here we go. So first of all, we want to make the wheels fit inside of the wheel wells. The wheels I chose are from an R34 Nismo Nissan Skyline, also from Tamiya. They both have a male fitment, so it's really easy to swap them over. Now these wheels are of course a lot wider than the stock wheels, so we need to make a couple of adjustments to the stock suspension in order to make it fit. I needed to cut a small amount of material out from the suspension arm. So we first cut that out and then cut some more out in order to make that wheel fit inside of the wheel well with the correct offset. So after making space and cleaning it up a bit, we test fit the suspension together again, added the disc brake, and then checked if the offset was correct, and the wheel now fit in perfectly without any hassle, and it also still spins as we did not adjust the way that the wheel is mounted inside of the suspension components. But now we also want to have it stanced and lowered, of course. So the stock suspension has it set at pretty much 90 degrees, so we can just start sanding the top down to give it a bit of an angle. After a lot of sanding on that top piece, we now of course have created that angle, thus creating the camber. So just to illustrate it a bit better, on the left we have the stock angle and on the right we have the cambered angle. The top piece is sanded inwards, creating that camber. So now we have it cambered, but it still has the same ride height. There is a small bridge in between the suspension pieces which needs to be cut out. This normally holds a notch on the disc brake to create that stock ride height, and by removing it we are free to move it up and down in that suspension. If your particular kit does not have this notch, you can just glue the disc brake higher up inside of the suspension or the wheel well. So just repeat the same steps to the other side and you now have it lowered and cambered to your desire. So we need to move on to the front. This starts with the stock suspension, of course. It has a small pin on the top that needs to be cut off. We need to drill a hole and then insert a metal pin to recreate that and keep the same position. You will see why later on. So after drilling that hole, we now know where the suspension needs to sit in order to create that stock camber. And in order to lower it, we just remove some material from the top. You can either just cut it off or sand it off, and check in the meantime by assembling the suspension if this is what you want. After checking that this is the correct height you want, just insert a new pin. It could be a metal pin or whatever you want. It suits the job. Now we need to adjust the suspension arm as well by just pressing it in, bending it in a bit lower in order to adjust to that lower suspension and making it still fit. So it's now a lot lower. You can even do this more, up to your desire, and this is good enough for me, so we now can move on to adjusting that camber. There is a stock hole on the right and I drilled a new one on the left, making the suspension go in a lot more, creating that camber effect. Now of course I hear you guys thinking, but this is a Tamiya kit, how do I do this on any other kit? Well, it pretty much applies to the same method as I used here. You just might need a bit of imagination and a bit of adjusting on this method, but it should work just fine. And the good thing of this all is that the wheels still turn and still spin, as we did not adjust the way the wheel was mounted to the disc brake with the poly caps. We just adjusted the lower ride height and the camber by adjusting the suspension itself.